I'm a hustler, man. I'm always get it off the muscle, man. Tryna make them hunters bust the rubber bands. Rain, sleet, hell or snow, I'm tryna get it in. Woo! I go door to door, stacking up them dollars like dominoes. I go door to door.
Hustlers, hustlers, hustlers. What's cracking? It's your boy Deshaun. Welcome back to another episode of Roof Hustlers, baby. We will tackle all your daily door-to-door objections, rejections, and we teach you guys how to make connections, man. Because if you ain't creating genuine customer connections, building better customer relationships, and providing premier customer service, then you know, like I know, guys, you ain't making a difference in your wallet or the community, baby. And that's what we do over here at Roof Hustlers, man. Help you guys go from average to good, from good to great. Always keeping food on your plate, baby. Because if you do what I do, you know it's a jungle out here. First and foremost, welcome to the fourth quarter. It is separation season. It's that time of year where you're going to hear two things during this time of year. You're going to hear excuses and you're going to hear people execute, right? And I want to let you know, you can make money or you can make excuses, but you can't do both, right? Just came back from a phenomenal RoofCon 2024. That was amazing, right? Maybe we'll do another episode kind of giving y'all a recap of what we got out of RoofCon, right? But what I want to talk to y'all about today is, as I continue to fly around the country and we do events and I run into all of these hustlers around the country, I always get common questions, right? And one question that I get consistently is, what should I be working on? What's some things you'll tell me a new rep to focus on? Or even a guy that's been doing it 2, 3, 4 years, man, what's some things you think I should be, working on to take my game to that next level? And I sat back and I thought about it, right? And I'm like, I view salespeople like a Madden created player, right? And it's like, what are those attributes that you should continuously be working on and developing to take your game to that next level? So what I got for y'all today is the 3 attributes. I feel like if you work on these 3 things, you'll continuously develop, continuously elevate, and the rest of your game will fall into place and continue to follow it, right? So 3 attributes you need to be working on consistently to continuously take your game to that next level. The first attribute, right? I feel like this is the most important out of all 3. They all important, but I feel like this is the most important one, is self-awareness. You have to develop a high level of self-awareness when you get into sales. And people ask me, what's the number 1 skill set you should develop, right? Number 1 attribute is self-awareness, right? Once you become self-aware, everything else in life starts to quote unquote slow down, but it doesn't really slow down. It's because you're more aware of the things happening around you and who you are, right? So when it comes to self-awareness, what's some things you need to work on specifically? First thing you need to work on is become aware of who you are. Understand your personality types, right? Understand the way you like to sell, the way you like to receive information, your temperaments, right? Are you a detailed person, people person, reserved person, dominant person, right? You need to become aware of those things. Why? Because your personality can rub people the wrong way sometimes. So you need to become aware of who you are and the way that you carry yourself, right? So that's the first thing when it comes to self-awareness, become aware of who you are, right? Your personality type. The second thing when it comes to self-awareness, you need to become aware of why you do what you do, right? Become aware of why you do what you do. It isn't essential just to come out here and just go through the motions. You got to know that deep underlying why of what gets you up every single day and what allows you to continue to pursue a goal or pursue an endeavor, right? Because when you have that awareness of why you're doing it, that's what prevents burnout, right? A lot of guys get burnt out, not because you're tired of doing the job. You get burnt out because you lost that awareness of why you do what you do. So you have to develop that self-awareness of why I do what I do. That way, the days you lack in motivation, the days you lack in inspiration, you tap into that why and it keeps you going. But that is a form of self-awareness, right? The next form of self-awareness that you got to be mindful of is, what are your weaknesses, right? What is those parts of your game that isn't the strongest? Am I telling you to continue to work on your weaknesses? No, but you need to become aware of them. Why? Because when you're aware of your weaknesses, now what you can do is develop a system around the parts of your game that isn't strong that allows you to continue to be productive. So for example, details is one of my weaknesses. So what did I do? I created systems around me. So I keep calendars all through my house. I use a calendar on my phone. My assistant, I made to take the test, right? I made it become aware of who her personality is. She has a very detailed personality type, right? So I added her to my life because she's a part of the system that I develop in. So when it comes to your weaknesses, I'm not telling you to double down on them and improve them, but I am telling you to become aware of them, because when you know the areas that you're weak at, you can work with those opposite type of people on purpose to close your gaps, right? And to cover your blind spots. But you got to become aware of your weaknesses. Also, another thing when it comes to your weaknesses, what really is a weakness? It's when you double down on your strengths sometimes. So sometimes you could be really good at something and you could depend on it so much that it actually cripples you. So you have to have that self-awareness of your strengths, your weaknesses, right? Not relying on your strengths too much, and the parts of your game that you are weak, supplementing those parts of your game with people who are strong in those areas. That becomes more adamant when you become more self-aware. Next thing you got to become self-aware of is your thoughts, right? Are you a positive thinker or are you a negative thinker, right? And if you are a negative thinker, how do we gain control of those thoughts and turn them into more positive thoughts, right? You have to become aware of what you are thinking about. Most people don't. Most people just go through their day mindlessly thinking. But when you become self-aware, you start to become aware of your negative thoughts, right? Or you start to become aware of your doubtful thoughts, or you start to become aware of your second-guessing thoughts, and you overpower those with better thoughts. So most people aren't aware of the things that they think about, especially in sales, because most of your thoughts are habitual. So if you got habitual thoughts, you're not aware of your thoughts because they're just on autopilot. So you have to become aware of your thoughts, man. That's going to be crucial. So that's another area of self-awareness that you got to improve on. And last but not least, you got to become aware of the external and the internal, right? External, what do I mean by that? If you're doing door-to-door sales or any form of, business to consumer sales, you have to become aware of your environments, right? We were just in the neighborhood working this past weekend, and a guy was like, man, it's crazy how aware you are of the neighborhood where we parked at, like people who coming home, people who not coming home, the type of houses, like the things that's outside the house. I'm like, yeah, because it can tell you a lot about your homeowner. So you have to become aware of the external, then you have to become aware of the internal. What do I mean by that? You got to become aware of how you feeling some days, right? And you just can't suppress how you feel. You got to become aware of it, right? You got to learn how to become aware of just being in the moment, right? All those are forms of self-awareness, realizing that you don't got as much time as you think you have, right? Maybe you're not as good as you think you are, right? So you can continue to improve your game. But you got to become aware of the external and the internal. And most importantly, you got to mature. That is a form of self-awareness. Are you an obedient person? Do you take directions well? Do you submit to higher levels of leadership? And are you an aqueous person, meaning are you open to do things that don't align with how you would normally do things, but you still give them a shot because it might give you a higher chance of success? So you have to become self-aware of your maturity. And as you become aware of all of these things, right, your sales will improve naturally. Why? Because you're more self-aware of who you are, your triggers, what allows you to be successful, what prevents you from being successful, right? What stops you from going to that next level and what's keeping you at the same level. So the first attribute you need to work on is your self-awareness. Number one skill set I feel like any sales rep need to develop is self-awareness. Once you become more aware of the self, it is that much easier to succeed. The second attribute that I feel like you got to continuously be working on, right? Whether you 1 year in the game, 6 months, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. The second one is communication. You got to continuously work on your communication. And when I say communication, I don't mean just talking proper, right? That's not what I mean by communication. So what is communication? It's what they hear, not what you say. So communication has so many, levers on it that you got to continuously improve and become aware of and think about. The first thing when it comes to communication, be mindful of the words that you use, right? Words create thoughts, triggers, and emotions in people. So are you using productive words? Are you using words that trigger your homeowners and make them regress, right? Or are you using words that are easy to conceptualize? Or are you using words that are too big that go over people's head? You got to understand that the words that you use matter, and words mean what they mean. Recently, we was at an event, and the guy was like, I got an inside sales teams. What they do is they follow up with an insurance company, and they do supplements. And I had to tell him, I'm like, you don't have an inside sales team. You got an inside supplement team. And that might sound super simple, but that is the importance of being mindful of the words that you use, because the inside sales team follow up with deals, right? They don't check on supplements. So the first thing when it comes to communication, be mindful of the words that you're using. I don't use the word basically. I don't use doubt words, right? I don't use the words like, you know what I'm saying? You feel me? All of those words, I've learned to eliminate them out my vocabulary, and it's allowed me to be more productive on the doors, because now I don't use unnecessary words to get a message across. But I didn't start doing that till like year 3 or 4. It took me a lot of time to become aware of the words that I use, right? So that's the first thing. Be mindful of the words that you're using. Second thing when it comes to communication, become mindful of how other people like to receive information, right? So when you're talking to a more detailed person, you can't give them a big picture explanation, because that's not how they prefer to receive information, right? If you're talking to a people person, you got to be a little bit flamboyant. You got to be energetic, right? You got to sell them on the energy They don't like dry communication. If you're talking to a direct person and that's not your language, right, you got to learn how to communicate with them in a very concise, precise, direct way. Why? Because that's how they prefer to receive information. Communication is way bigger than just, getting your point across. Communication is more about helping your homeowners understand the message that you're relaying to them in a way they like to receive it versus the way you like to give it, right? The day I started learning how people like to receive information, my game went to a whole new level. My deals started closing more, and I'm able to connect with more homeowners. Why? Because I know everybody a little bit different. So when it comes to your communication, outside of being mindful of the words that you use, also be mindful of how people like to receive communication, because that's what good communicators do. You can cater your message to the way everybody likes to receive information, and now you can talk to more groups of people. The third thing when it comes to your communication, you got to be mindful of your tonality. Right? The speed that you talk at. I'm a natural fast talker. I can get up on this camera and I can relay this information pretty fast, faster than you think I can, right? Why? Because I know the things that I want to say and I know how fast I want to get them across. But I'm also aware that the faster you talk, the less likely people believe you. You got to give people time to chew on your words. And there's two different ways to say, hey, you know the name of your homeowner's insurance? Or, hey, if you don't mind me asking, you know the name of your homeowner's insurance? The tonality and the way I deliver both of those messages matters. The speed that I deliver those messages matter. So you could use the right words, you could know how people like to receive the information, but are you talking in the right tone? And are you talking at the right pitch and the right speed? Because all of these things matter when it comes to communicating with other people. And last but not least, when it comes to communication, are you able to take complex situations and simplify them, right? Einstein said it best, if you can't simplify it, you don't know it well enough. So simplicity is one of the keys to communication. Can I take a complex situation and help a fifth grader understand it? Because if so, I'm a really good communicator. You're not a cool communicator if you use very big words. That's not what makes you a good communicator. What makes you a good communicator is that people are able to understand what you're saying, comprehend it, and then execute on the information that you provided them. I was recently at an event and I was talking to a dude. He was like, man, you know one thing I like about your information? I said, what? He said, you make it so simple. He said, it's so easy to digest and it's easy to take the stuff that you say and go apply it immediately. That's what a good communicator does. So listen, the second attribute I need you to work on, your communication. Are you good at relaying the message? Are you good at making people receive the message the right way? Are you mindful of the words that you use, the speed, the tonality? And can you simplify it? All of those things make you a very good communicator, right? Good communicators make it easy to say yes, hard to say no, and most importantly, you always make it the other person idea, right? So you got to continue to improve that attribute of communication. And last but not least, I know I said the most important one is self-awareness, and it is, but the one that's right below that one, you got to develop the proper mindset. I'm a firm believer, once you get your mind right, you can get your grind right. And your grind don't peak because your mind weak. And you can have all of the skill sets, but if your mindset is trash, your results will follow. You won't have the results that you are after because you got a trash mindset, right? I'm a certified mental performance coach. I work on my mindset more than I work on anything else. Why? Because you give up mentally before you give up physically. Even if you do physical activities, you're going on a run, your mind hurts before your body hurts. And once your mind experiences pain or regret or negativity, it naturally shuts everything else down. So how do you have the mindset to keep going when things get hard, right? That mental toughness. When it comes to mindset, right, we do door-to-door sales, right? We do business to consumer, marketing, right? You got to have this mindset of you're not bothering people, you're helping people. I know that's a simple thought process, but just flipping your mindset, right, your perspective will increase your performance, because how you view what you do will always determine the level of effort and energy in which you do what you do. So how do you view what you do? What is your mindset on door-to-door sales, right? Are you bothering people? Are you helping people? Are you a nuisance? Are you a blessing? Those small things matter, because if you view it the right way, you could do it at a very high level. So you got to shift that mindset, right? Another thing when it comes to mindset is you got to learn how to operate out of principles and not your feelings, right? Your feelings can mislead you, because some days you're going to feel like doing it, some days you're not going to feel like doing it. But the day you start becoming principle driven, you develop a different mindset. It's only a small group of people that operate out of principles. So I believe 4 things run our universe, right? Systems, formulas, principles, and feelings, right? We could talk about the other 3, but I want to specifically talk about principles today and feelings. Behind every principle is a promise. Behind your feelings is nothing. My game went to a whole new level when I developed my 11 door-to-door roof commandments. Why? They were principle driven. Greatest salesman in the world. I love it. Why? It's principle driven. So you got to get to this place to where you develop a mindset of operating out of principles. It'll keep you out your feelings and it'll keep you more productive. But that's a mindset shift to be a principle driven man, right? Or a principle driven woman, or just a principle driven salesperson in general. The next thing when it comes to mindset, right? You got to improve your self-talk. So like I said, self-awareness, you got to become aware of your thoughts, right? But the mindset is, how do you talk to yourself? Because that's part of your mindset. Do you got a positive mindset or you got a negative mindset? Are you always down in the dumps? Are you always being pessimistic? Or have you learned to change your thoughts to be optimistic, right? And that does take work. It is a different level of effort to rewire your thought process in your brain. Why? Because you've been thinking the same way majority of your life. But have you gained control of your thoughts and your mindset to be a more positive outlooking person, or you're a more negative outlooking person, right? So that's a shift in mindset. Do you got a positive one or a negative one? Another thing when it comes to developing a proper mindset, right, is you have to understand that you have to fall in love with the process and appreciate and enjoy the results, but you're not entitled to the results, right? That's the proper mindset. So listen, you always have the rights to your labor, but not the fruits of your labor. And let me say that again. You always have the rights to your labor, but not the fruits of your labor. So if you out here putting in work, you have to love the process more than you love the results. And that's a mindset shift, because when you're a process-driven person, you could come out here and do this job every single day. Why? Because you're following the process that lead to results. But if you're a result-driven person, believe it or not, you could become more negative because you're not going to get results as often as you would hope, because this is just how the world works, right? So you got to develop this mindset of falling in love with the process and not the results of things. And last but not least, when it comes to mindset, we kind of addressed it earlier, but you have to learn to get out of your feelings. That is a mindset shift, because your feelings will lie to you, right? Your feelings will mislead you. Your feelings will deceive you. So if you're always in your feelings about things, if you're always emotional about things, right, it's going to be hard to do sales in general, because sales is a roller coaster. So you have to develop the mindset of being even keel, right? Emotional maturity. You can't get too high on your highs. You can't get too low on your lows. And that happens once you understand this thought process of, I can't always fall in love with how I'm feeling about things, because it'll mislead you. Because if you go out there and have a bunch of success, now you feel good about door-to-door sales, now you want to do it often. But if you go out there and you don't have success, now you don't feel good about door-to-door sales and you don't want to do it as much. So you got to learn to stay out of your feelings. You got to learn to be even keel. And you can't get too high on your highs, you can't get too low on your lows. And that is a mindset shift. The greats understand this. Steph Curry can shoot 10, 15 shots. He can miss 8 of those 15 shots. But he's still going to come back and keep shooting. Why? Because he don't get in his feelings about missing the shots. He understands, like, hey, I still got to keep showing up. I can't get too high on this, can't get too low on this. I got to stay even keel, right? So listen, you got to get out of your feelings. That's another part of developing the proper mindset, right? And of course, you got to develop mental toughness, right? You got to be able to deal with high levels of adversity and still persevere, even when things aren't playing in your favor. That's one of the most important keys out here, is developing that mental toughness, right? So those are the 3 attributes I feel like you got to continuously work on. You got to develop that self-awareness, become aware of who you are. You got to develop proper communication. Am I good at conveying messages? Am I good at simplifying them? Am I good at taking complex things and making them easy to digest? Because that is a skill set and an attribute that a lot of people don't possess. And last but not least, do I work on my mindset consistently, right? Am I building the mentality to be great at what I do? And if you work on these 3 attributes consistently, I promise you, you'll blow your competition out the water, and you'll continue to increase your numbers. And most importantly, you'll just continue to grow as a human as a whole, because these 3 attributes are bigger than sales. These are things you need to be mindful as you go through in life, right? So for all the hustlers out there, every time you see me, you're like, man, what's these things I need to work on? Them the 3: self-awareness, communication, and mindset, the proper mindset. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us some comments down in the comment box. We do pay attention to those. If there's any topics you want us to cover, shoot us an email, deshaun@roofhustlers.com, right? We pay attention to those as well. We'll come out and make sure we cover those things that you email us about, right? Make sure you follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Deshaun Bryant, right? And of course, the YouTube channel. We always appreciate you guys' feedback, because without y'all, the brand wouldn't keep growing, right? So listen, as always, baby, hustle hard, hustle small. Don't be afraid to both. Hustlers, I'm out.